Hey, so let's talk about myself. I have almost 16 years of experience, and I've been working on AWS for almost 6.5, 7 years now. My primary technology is AWS and Google Cloud. Also, I'm from Big Data and Application Architect. And I have taken interview of more than at least 75 to 100 candidates on cloud itself. So that's all about me. I have multiple certifications like AWS Professional, AWS Architect Professional, GCP, Google Cloud Data Engineer Professional, Google Cloud Professional Solutions Architect, and Big Data Developer Spark. So, that's about me. And this session, as you already know, is to help you all to prepare for the interviews. And the prerequisite is that you know AWS. So I hope you have taken AWS classes, you are working on AWS, or you are learning AWS. And this session will help you in preparing for the interviews, what kind of questions you might get. So
Yeah,
anything?
yeah.
What about you? Can Rumsi and Bachu, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure, definitely, Prakash. Myself, Jagdish Reddy, Bachu is my surname. Yeah, I had 9 years of experience. So I work for Java developer as well as the first 4 years I've been in DevOps and implementing various CI/CD pipelines and code as a code and AWS as well and Azure. So in AWS, almost a lot of services I work on this one. So most of the things I did automation of the things through cloud formation and to Terraform other things. Yeah, and work for multiple technologies. So no, I'm currently working for service-based things. So I've been working WebLogic, WebSphere, DB2, Java development, EXTJS, and then part of Node.js also. So these many technologies I've been working on this. So I am going to take a next month to AWS professional certificate. So and then so this is my all experience.
So looking for an AWS architect role or developer next?
Looking for developer, most of the DevOps related things.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. What about Rumsi?
Prakash. I have 9 years experience in IT. Initially, I was working in development, then I moved to build this deployment. So, last 4 years I was working for build release only, and last 2 years in DevOps. So, and currently I am trying to learning AWS. So I thought it will be this class will be useful for me and to improve my AWS knowledge. That's why I joined this.
So
That's it.
you completed learning AWS or you are still learning?
I'm still learning. I'm still learning AWS.
So this is only interview questions. Okay, I'll not talk about any AWS concepts as such. So
No
only
problem. Just mm,
so there'll be some questions and what kind of questions you can expect and how do you answer those. So it
okay.
will be tips to interview. So how do you attend it? No, because
Sure, sure.
all the interviews, irrespective of your irrespective of what position you apply for, it will be technical, hardcore. So this is to give you a guide on the interview, how it will happen.
Okay, okay. So, okay, no problem. I will take it out. No problem.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start. As I said, it's only interview questions. So first of all, what are the top five AWS services for interview? This is what we I have been asking, and I have seen people asking also virtual private cloud or VPC. You should know in and out of VPC. Not only VPC, how do we make hybrid connection like VPN, direct connect, etc. So how do you provision a network infrastructure or a network topology on AWS? Then how do you make connections with, let's say, your on-premise data center with AWS VPC? So this is VPC is very important no matter what role you apply for, what role you interview for, does not matter. This is one of the most important topics, and it will always be. Even though let's say you are applying for AWS Big Data Architect, VPC would be asked. If you are applying for AWS developer, VPC will be asked. So that's why it is the most important topic for AWS services for interview. Then auto scaling and load balancing. This is mainly for AWS Essential. Now, let's say if you're looking for developer service, AWS developer, or AWS big data specialist, or AWS solutions architect role, or senior architect, technical manager. These are the things that you should know, come what may. So auto scaling and load balancing. So I have combined both of them together because you'll never use auto scaling by itself, or you'll never use elastic load balancer by itself. You'll always combine these two. This is another topic which should be very, very much of relevance when you go for interview. Of course, EC2 is implicit. There are a few things which are implicit. I'll not talk about it, like EC2. You should know what EC2 is. Okay, so relational database services or RDS, of course, because it is database, it is important. And in AWS, there are various, RDS provides various database engines, and you should know all the database engines, not the databases, but how do you use those databases? How do you migrate databases from on-premise to AWS? How do you create an solution using RDS services? So when should you use RDS? When should you use database engine on EC2 instance? So these are the things that you should know. So it's not that you should know the service by itself. The how those services can be used. As I said, RDS does not mean that you just read or learn RDS and then you are done. You should know also the how to migrate databases from from on-premise to AWS. All the other things. How do you maintain scalability? What are the advantages? How do you create various solutions using these services? Okay, then identity and access management, which is again one more important topic, which is mainly for security and authority. And I'll add one more, which is pretty much asked nowadays if you're going for application architect, Lambda, AWS Lambda, which is serverless. So this is also used a lot, where to use Lambda, how to use Lambda, etc. Okay, this is another services, as I said. And then finally S3 EBS, there are a lot of other storage services. S3 also asked a lot because the usage of S3 is a lot. It's not only to store objects. You can use S3 to create your static website. You can use S3 as an SFTP server. So let's say you want to migrate your SFTP server. How do you provision, basically? How do you use SFTP server on S3? On AWS. Use S3 for that. Not only that, you can use S3 for S3 is a distributed storage. Let's say you have big data workload. So do you use S3 or do you use HDFS? So S3 is used everywhere. How do you migrate? How S3 is useful for migration of data, migration of application to S3. So these are the top 5. Of course, there are a lot of other services which you should know, like EC2, Lambda, DynamoDB, or MongoDB or DocumentDB that AWS has. Then ECS a little bit, or EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. Those are the things. If you are talking about microservices and application architecture, those are the things that you should know. But again, as far as essential services are concerned, these are the top 5. There are other services also which we did not mention. So any questions? Otherwise, or else we'll go to the question section.
No, Prakash, you can continue. Fine.
Okay, so let's ask a question and you see whether you can answer it or not. So the first question we see, let's say I have an application deployed in AWS, but it says because of security reasons, Hold on a second. So it says that because of security reasons, all of them have been lost in private subnet. NAT gateway cannot be used to. So how do you get software to those machines? So you do not have NAT gateway. You cannot download from internet. All of them are in private subnet. How do you get software to those machines? So let's say Java, and you have development machines. You have, let's say, around 100 development machines, which are behind private subnet, and you want to download the latest version of Java on those machines so that you can upgrade, or let's say Informatica or a database, whatever. Now you can't even use NAT gateway. So what is the way to get software to those machines? How do you download the software to those machines? Can you answer?
You can take a S3 bucket, upload the software components out there, and from that we can download the software.
Okay, so
Or else
yeah,
go for Bastion host the things. From Bastion
okay,
host we can move those.
okay. So you're saying Bastion host. Now, if you're
Yeah.
talking about Bastion host, then of course you need to have that host running all the time, and you can have hundreds of softwares which you have
Uh,
to keep on downloading to your Bastion host. So the first option you said, that is a more preferable option, but there's a follow-up question. So as now you're saying that you can put the software in S3 and then you can
yeah.
download from S3 to that is a more preferable solution. But the question here is that you can't even use NAT gateway. How do you connect to S3 endpoint from EC2 instances in private subnet?
We can create S3 endpoint. Endpoint VPC endpoint. We can create that. Then we can download that.
Okay, so you're saying so what is the advantage of VPC endpoint? Can you tell me?
So that is no need to expose the outside the things. So that endpoint to using that endpoint. So within VPC you can communicate the things.
Correct. So correct answer. So you use VPC endpoints, which gives private access. So let's say you have EC2 instances which are in private subnet. You can use VPC endpoints to connect to public services like S3 using the backbone network. So you don't have to go to internet. So you can use these endpoints to connect to S3. So that is the preferable solution. There are two solutions, I say, but the preferable one is, of course, the other one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So now the next question, how to get the IP address of an application load balancer, and what do you see when you try to do so? So let's say there's a situation wherein you need the IP address. We cannot use the DNS name. For example, let's say you have a Kubernetes cluster. From the Kubernetes cluster, you're trying to connect to this application which is running behind application load balancer, and you are using Kubernetes network policies. And in Kubernetes network policy, you not whitelist the services which that application can connect to. Now, application load balancer does not give you an IP address; it gives you DNS name. It cannot be used. So how do you get the IP addresses?
I think load balancer we can get that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Answer?
not sure.
Yeah. What about other? I think it was Bacho. What about?
Yeah, not sure.
Yeah. Just a second. What about Runsi? Can you answer? Can you try? How do you get the load balancer application load balancer IP address? Okay, so the answer is you can use tools like NSLOOKUP and DIG to get the IP address of the application load balancer. But the problem is that you'll get multiple IP addresses. The reason is the number of IP addresses. The second question, what do you see if you try to do so? This is to know whether you have actually worked on a application load balancer or not. Because when you create an application load balancer, you mention the AZs for the load balancer. So let's say you have added 4 AZs for the load balancer, you'll get 4 IP addresses. So that's what they're trying to find out. So if I do an IP address, if you do an NS lookup, how many IP addresses you'll see. Okay, so it's like to find out whether you are actually hands-on or not. All right. Okay. Next question. You have a retail application set up on AWS. Electronic system.
Prakash, yeah, on
Yeah.
load here, see application load balancer. If you get the NS lookup, so that IP is dynamic IPs, right? So those IPs we can't add then security group whitelist things.
Yes, actually you can't. And that is just a second.
IPs will be changed, right? We not sure.
Yeah,
Those are
so
not static.
point number one, yes. So let's say you have a Kubernetes cluster, or let's say you want to whitelist. Typically, what will you do is you'll run a cron job, which will get the if type. See, IP addresses will not change unless the nodes go down, and of course, we will not
Yeah,
know
yeah.
whether the. So you can keep on running it and get the list of IP addresses, and then put those IP addresses in the whitelisting list. Okay, so
Or not,
of course there
but
can be solution.
but
That is
every
not
time,
the way to do.
but not good, right? So everything getting the IPs and adding those security groups.
No, it's not. You see, it's just whitelisting the IP addresses. You're not hitting the load balancer using the IP address. If you want to, you can see. There's one more solution. There can be one more solution to this. There's an option called virtual IP. So you can use virtual
Uh,
IP. Put all these behind a virtual IP and use use that virtual IP. The problem here is that you'll have to change the IP addresses of the virtual IP every now and then. You, as I said, you run a cron job. Of course, this is not a good practice, but the purpose here to know whether you are actually hands-on or not. You should never ever do this. You should never ever use IP addresses of an application movement. So you are correct. But
yeah. So let us suppose if you want to assign the static IP to load balancer, is it possible?
you can use a VIP, but on AWS, no. In AWS, no. You can't.
Okay. So virtual IP means so where we need to create virtual IP in that we can't control them, right? Virtual IPs that automatically will come.
That's a networking solution. You can create virtual IP with multiple IP addresses.
You mean that's code, Ethernet code? So Ethernet assign the Ethernet code and creating the some other IP address, assign the address.
No, not exactly, not exactly. So as I said, I mean that's a networking solution that is beyond AWS, and the way you do it is that you create a single IP address for multiple. Either use there are various policies available. So
Okay.
if one of the IP addresses is down, it will not send it to that IP address.
Okay. Fine.
Again, that is not a solution. That this is not a good solution at all. And as I said, the purpose here is to find out whether you have actually worked on load balancer or not. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Prakash. Okay. Thank you.
All right. The next question is that you have a retail application set up on AWS. We have something called electronics component, which is in VPC1. So all the applications of electronics is in VPC1. And let's say home appliance is another component, which is in VPC2 in the same region. Now the problem here is that the payment component needs to communicate to both the mentioned sections. It's a very small application. It has only electronics and home appliance. Where do you place this payment component? And give me all the options that you can think of for component. All the solutions that you can think of.
So payment component is and different VPC or the payment component in which VPC?
Your solution, whichever you think. Give me the solution.
Yeah, you can go for VPC feeding the things. So with that VPC feeding, so both are you can communicate the things.
So you're saying that so this is you have to give me the entire solution.
Okay, okay. I will set up an electronic section.
Sorry.
Okay, okay. So as for this design, so we will go for three VPC series. So one VPC for electronic application, another VPC for home appliance, and payment gateway will go for another VPC things. So VPC 3. So VPC 3 will get pairing with VPC 1 and VPC 2, so that the communication happen between them. So the payment component will interact with VPC 1 hosted that application electronic and home applications in VPC 2. So this is the design the things.
Okay, so you're saying another VPC.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so what is the problem if I put, let's say, the payment component in VPC1? Will there be any problem?
No, no problem. We can put
Okay.
that, but
Mhm.
we're dedicating one of the payment get related things in one VPC. That's it. Otherwise, we can put in any VPC 1 or VPC 2.
Okay.
Yeah,
So which one
that's
is
my
better
solution.
option?
I can't say which one is better.
Okay. See, if you create one more VPC, you can do that. The
Yeah.
solution is correct. Now, see, if you see the question, no constraint has been placed here saying that it's a very vague question. It's not that you have to create another VPC. The moment you create one more VPC, what will happen
Yeah.
is that it'll increase your network. The administration will increase, right? So you have to control one more VPC. So
Yeah,
you're going to
operational overheads.
correct. Operationally, it will be very bad. So now that means you are going for a solution. Let's say one more component comes up, you'll create one more VPC. Okay,
Ah,
so you understand the thought process, right? So the thought process should be as less clumsy as it can be. Okay, so if you put it in the same VPC, there's no problem, right? And you can peer to VPCs, unless you have payment gateway is in one subnet, and allow firewall rules, set up the firewall rules in such a way that only that subnet is allowed from one VPC to another. But if for every new component, if you keep on creating new VPCs, then operationally it will be huge operations over. Hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, yes.
Right. Okay. Next question. Design a disaster recovery system of an application with 2 hours of RPO and 12 hours of RTO. Now, this question is typically for people who have worked on AWS extensively, AWS designing, setup, etc. So, can you answer, or we'll skip this question if you have not worked on AWS design as such? Do you know what is RPO and what is RTO?
Yeah, recovery process and recovery time.
Sorry?
Yes, not sure what I forgot in
Point
that.
objective and time objective. Okay. So, do you know the solution? You know how to design such solution, sorry.
No, no, not sure that.
Okay. All right. So now, how to approach this? So you have to find out. See, 2 hours of RPO means recovery point objective, and 12 hours of RTO is that you can, if any disaster happens, your application should be brought online within 12 hours of time. Now, RPO is more critical. Sorry, both are more critical. Now, as you can see that you have enough time to bring your. But the point objective is not that far, meaning that you cannot lose data more than 2 hours. So you can, if any disaster happens, your data should be available no less than last. You cannot lose data more than 2 hours of the from the time that the disaster happened. So how do you uh, basically design the solution? See, let's talk about 3D architecture, 3D application. Okay. Now the only thing that you have to bother about is the data. Now, this RPO or the disaster recovery design will depend a lot based on the size of data. Right? Let's say you have terabytes of data, then your RPO should be different. Now, terabytes of data, if in 1 second, yeah. So in AWS, how to design such a solution wherein terabytes of data can be can be backed up within 2 hours, which is kind of impossible, and you have thousands of databases. So as far as data is concerned, mm, the only way that will handle this is using. So how where do you put your data? You put where are the places you can put data? You can put data in RDS. You can put data in S3. Typically, not will not put data in EBS, but some cases, some short amount of application data you can have on EBS. So how do you design a solution, design an application wherein take care of the data? Okay, first let's talk about RDS. So if you have RDS, then what will happen is in RDS there's something called read replica. So you set up read replica, you do not have to do anything, data will be automatically replicated for all the 1,000 databases, or more than 1,000. So you don't have to do anything from your side. You just have to take care of. You always have to make sure that your read replica is up and running. Okay. S3. In S3, you can set up cross-region replication. So in cross-region replication, whatever object you put in, all those objects will be automatically replicated to a S3 bucket, which is on a different region. Now, what about EBS? EBS is not that straightforward because there's no automatic. There's no. You cannot have. AWS does not give any automated solution to set EBS or to move EBS from one place to another. You can't do that. So the only option is that you have to create your own script, which will take snapshot of EBS every 2 hours and then copy that snapshot over to another region, which you can do. So you can copy EBS snapshots to another region. Okay, now as I said, you should not ever put huge amount of data on EBS. Few hundred GB is still okay. Let's say 100, 200, maximum 3 to 400 GB, not more than that. And then take the snapshot every 2 hours. All right. Now, why snapshot? Because as you know, that snapshots are delta, meaning that it will not take. You might ask, what if I have 500 GB of EBS data and I take a snapshot? It takes more than 2 hours. So EBS snapshots actually only take a backup of data, which wherein the data has changed. It will not back up the entire database or entire storage. Sorry. So that's why EBS snapshot. Now, what about application itself? If you talk about application, then you have to have AMIs. So create AMIs whenever your application changes. Create AMI and then copy it over to the other region. Okay. So these are again high level. There can be a lot of other solutions. Sorry, not solution. There can be a lot of other components that you can think of. Okay, next question. Even though you have a setup auto scaling, new instances are not starting. What could be the reasons? Tell me one or two reasons. That should be okay. That should be more than enough.
So it might be one of the reason is it's a different type of instant type family. So
Mm, not exactly.
okay,
So instance family, you'll mention it in launch configuration, right?
okay.
So
Maybe sometimes it's a problem with AWS network underlying hardware problem.
not exactly.
Yeah, okay. One more thing, auto scaling size also. If we give 0, 0, it won't start anything, right?
Definitely, that is not the case. Cannot have zero.
Yeah, that's it. My side.
Okay. See, one option can be that your EC2 instances are at maximum level. So let's say you have set up auto scaling group wherein um, the maximum number of instances is 10 and it is already running 10 instances.
So I meant, okay, okay. Uh, no. You were saying
Okay.
those instance limit of AWS account level or auto
No,
scaling
no, no,
group
auto
level.
scaling group. Auto scaling group.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so auto scaling group itself, you have maximum 10 and it has crossed, it is already running at 10. That is one of the reasons. Another reason can be that, see, you have to set up the scaling policies very diligently. And yeah, let's say there's an already running application and you're saying that the memory utilization is going high. You're expecting that it should scale out, but the scaling is set up at CPU level. Okay, so in that case, auto scaling will not happen. So what is the purpose of this question? So you have to understand that. So the purpose of this question is to come up with all the wrong things that can go in auto scaling, which will give interviewer an idea whether you have hands-on or not. So the scaling policy issues, you have auto scaling group level issues, you can have cool down period issues, etc. Okay, so now if when you get questions like this, make sure that the interviewer wants to actually find out whether you are hands-on or not. So you have to tell all the options that you know in such scenarios. I'm giving you only two options. Of course, there can be other options also. So uh, again, it's to test whether you're hands-on or not. Same is the next question also. So you have set up S3 cross-region replication, but you see that the objects are not being replicated. What could be the possible reasons? So when you see this, when you get this question like what could be the possible reasons, that means they want you to give all the reasons that you can think of based on your experience. Okay, so meaning that they want to calibrate your hands-on experience. So can you tell me this? This there cannot be much in this specific question. There is only one answer. So do you know that? Now the question is for S3, but the answer is actually not S3.
Yeah, not sure that.
Okay. So answer here is that uh, sorry, yeah, answer here is that see when you set up cross-region replication, you have to provide an IAM role which would have access to put the objects in the target bucket. If you just set up any with any role which does not have access to put or to replicate the object, you will not get any error message, but the objects will not be replicated. So now again, this is very specific to hands-on. So to know whether you are hands-on or not.
Yeah, understood. Roles. I experienced
Yeah.
this issue so many times.
Yes.
One
Okay.
more thing
So
regarding auto scaling thing. So for your answer is so max size already reached. So one of the reason. So another reason is scaling policies related things. Yeah, right. So and one more thing. So I have some doubts on over there. So AWS usually will give auto scaling or auto using based on CPU utilization, right? If let us suppose memory based, if you want to do, let us this much of memory is reached, we want to scale in new instance. So how can you do that? I
yeah,
experienced
so
this interview.
correct. So you can use something called custom matrix. So in CloudWatch you have custom matrix.
Okay.
Uh, so by default you don't get that. So
Yeah.
CloudWatch
Yeah.
does not give you matrix which is based on memory. So you have to create a custom matrix and you have
Okay.
to name those data points to CloudWatch. And based on that you can create an alarm which will take an auto scaling action.
So you're saying that we need to install any script in that all instance. So those script will sending the metrics to CloudWatch cutter metrics, right?
Correct. So you do not need to set up all the instances. Just one instance, create an AMI and launch all the EC2 instances with that AMI.
So in user data, so we are going to add that, right?
Not in
While
user data. Because
okay,
in user data, what will happen is that if you put it in user data, it will run or execute only once. So if you let's say 1,000 EC2 instances, how do you put that agent which will set the data point? Now the question here is the thing here is that it is only possible if you create an AMI with the agent or you launch an EC2 instance, install the agent there, create an AMI and launch the EC2 instances using that AMI.
okay. So you are saying that we need to make golden image, and then we need to use that AMI for all launch configuration setup, so that
Correct.
automatically will come built in.
Correct.
Startup, kick startup. So that is keep on sending metrics to CloudWatch. We need to create the custom metrics. Then accordingly, so we need to configure scale in or scale out.
Correct. Now there's one more solution to this. I don't know whether you have heard about Auto CloudWatch Logs agent. So you can use CloudWatch Logs agent, uh, which does the same thing. Okay,
CloudWatch.
so
Okay.
yeah, there's something called CloudWatch Logs agent, which you can install in your EC2 instance and tell that you want this type of matrix, monitor this file, send it to CloudWatch Logs, create a matrix from there, and then so there are enormous number of options that you can to create. So it's not only one; there are other options also.
Yeah. Okay. Fine.
So you should actually, you should actually consider all the options that you can think of and then tell those.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So this is a little different. Your organization has an IBM DB2 database is installed on hundreds of EC2 instances. As they are not managed services, DBAs are needed to maintain and govern those databases. How do you allow DBAs in your corporate network to log into those DB2 database servers?
AWS direct connection. That is, we can do that.
Mm, what connection? Sorry.
Just 1 second. AWS direct connection. Not sure.
Not exactly. So basically,
Direct.
see, what you do is, yes, direct connect is the one. So what you do is that either you create a bastion host which will have access to all the DB2 servers. From that bastion host, the DBS can log into bastion host, and from there they can go to DB2 servers. But the bastion host should have connectivity from your on-premise corporate network. So to do so, either you use AWS VPN, uh, which will connect your on-premise data center with your VPC, or use Direct Connect. Direct Connect typically not used because Direct Connect should not be a solution because that's very costly. If this is the only requirement that you have to do, then definitely Direct Connect is not the solution. If you have Direct Connect, you leverage that, but should not be the solution. One second. All right, I'm back. Now, you talked about directory services. So, directory services, using directory services, what you have to do is that you have to domain join the EC2 instances. So, again, even if you domain join, there will be any network connectivity. Okay. So, the only solution is from your corporate network, somehow you connect to AWS VPC, and from there go to the Bastion host, and from Bastion host go to the DB2 databases, data servers.
Okay, so we need to create the VPN connection between our own devices to.
Can't hear your voice, sir.
Yeah, okay. So now is it fine?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so I was saying about you need to create a VPN connection between our VPC to on-premises. Then after that, creating the Bastion host. From that Bastion host, we need to connect to private instances, right? The DBA
Entirely.
where it is. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Good.
Yeah. All right. So the next question is that you have an application like Instagram to upload photos by users. Okay. Now users take selfies using their mobile phones and upload those to the application. You are planning to host the application on AWS. How to design such application? What AWS components would be needed? Now, see, the question is very specific to design.
Yeah. Yes.
So now the thing is that if you do not have 10 plus years of experience, I don't think this is something that you need to bother about. But just to try it out, can you tell me uh, what what are the components that you would use?
Yeah, one of the component is three bucket, and for hosting the application, we'll go use for EC2 instance, and another thing is three endpoint we'll use for endpoint, and for assigning that IAM Zoom role policy for to them. So using this, we can these components we need to use that.
Correct? Yes, very good. Yes, that should be the answer. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm not going into the details here because again, this is a design level question mainly.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see if I have any. Okay. A global application is hosted on AWS and his database is placed on RDS. Now the problem is that number of users is increasing and you're getting performance issues ever since. How do you troubleshoot? And how can you solve the problem? You have to mention the steps.
For regarding this, we usually for our database related things, we'll use for metrics related to how CPU utilizations happen and how disk IO operations happens. So CPU cores related have any subset cores are there. So we will go through this dashboard based on that. So we'll whether increase the uh, disk space or IO increase or else RAM need to increase or so we need this way we can do that.
Yeah, so okay, so let's say you have increased the database size, but still, as it's a global application, the number of you have increased the instance class, you have changed the instance class. So as the number of users are high, you're still getting the performance issues. And
So in that such case, so for only for select related operations, so we will redirect to those kind of requests to for replica. So for write operations on our main database, master
mhm,
database.
correct,
So in this way we can, yeah,
correct. So basically, the thing here is that you have to create read replicas. Now,
yeah,
the question is that it's a global application.
yeah.
Yeah. Now, how do you create read replicas?
Yeah. Yeah, not sure that.
Yeah, so that's what mention the steps. So remain hands-on also. Okay, so go through the steps how to create replicas in AWS. That is very much needed.
Okay.
Right. All right. Now
Yeah.
this one, you are working for a customer. You have got the deal, which has AWS resources. Now, for security reasons, customers are not willing to create AWS account for vendors, which can happen. How do you get access to customers' AWS account in such a scenario? How do AWS not account? How do you get access to customers' AWS resources? Okay, so there's the last question. Can you try?
So two things is in security groups, whitelist for those particular IPs to access for that, and another thing is for IAM role the thing. So for IAM role,
No, security group will it?
so
Security group is for only firewall rules for EC2 instances. It can be various
yeah,
resources. It can be EMR, it can be S3, it can be DynamoDB, it can be DocumentDB, Lambda, etc., etc. So you need access to those services. So how do you access those?
yeah, not sure that. I'm not sure.
So go through it. The answer is of course IAM role.
Yeah.
And now so if you say IAM role, it will not suffice. You have to tell the entire details. Okay, so uh, that's what you have to say. I mean, how do you create IAM roles? First, you have to create your AWS account, your company's AWS account, and then how do you do the billing for such account, etc., etc. So there can be a lot of follow-up questions. If you answer this, there will be a lot of follow-up questions. How do you bill it? How do you bill it to the customer? How do you use services? Sorry, mm, who will create the role? How the role is created? So all the steps. The purpose of this question is to know from you whether you know all the steps to create an IAM role or not. and also permissions. So what, let's say DynamoDB read permission. How do you create that permission? Okay, how do you give permission? So basically to find out uh, how do you, whether you have hands-on or not. Okay. All right. So these are the questions there. These are the questions that we wanted to discuss. And as you have logged into Mentor School, there will be other sessions also, and you can get questions of all those sessions, recordings of all those sessions. And I mean, we have not gone into the details of answering a few questions. So just go through the recording and try to visualize how do you do stuff, right?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
there can be, so these are all tricky questions. These are not easy questions. Okay, so all have some twinge to it. So I could have asked easy questions also. So in some cases, I'll ask easy questions. But yes, so see, one thing is very important is that you have to make sure that you are hands on. If you are saying, if you are going to interview and you are saying that you know AWS, you can be rest assured whether you are working for a whether you're applying for a senior solutions architect, or you are applying for a solutions architect, or a principal engineer, or a technical manager, or any junior level. Hands-on is must until unless you are applying for pure management skills. Nowadays, uh, everyone is behind people who are hands-on. So if you're not hands-on, don't apply, because in that case you lose an opportunity. And in such situation, the current situation is not that good, right? You don't want to lose opportunities. So make sure you are hands-on. Also, we'll have sessions like this. These are the only, but these are the 10 questions that we come up. We'll have sessions like this, and we'll have other interview sessions also. We have online trainings also at Mentor School. AWS, other technologies like big data, Spark, Scala, Python, PySpark, and Google Cloud, of course, AWS, a lot of other technologies, training in a lot of other technologies. So join those if you want to spread the word. If you want to get prepared for interview, there will be a lot of other questions also like this. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So, one more doubt, Prakash. Recently, I experienced one of the couple of months ago for interview.
Mhm.
So, let us suppose that in production system, so EBS volume is, let us suppose we have 500 GB is the EBS volume. So, using that instant, so production is all transactions happening over there. So, disk space is completely it was full. So,
Sorry.
without outage, yeah,
Your
disk space
voice
was
is.
full. EBS now it is fine.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So let me explain the things. So in production system, so we are working sometimes production system.
Uh-huh.
So this online transactions application. So we have given for a 500 GB hard disk, this EBS file size for each instance. So instance EBS file size is keep on increasing and reaches that to 98% is the things. So I
Mm-hmm.
want to extend that. We want to add additional 5 GB for hard size EBS file size. So, but without outage, we need to add the things. So, can
Without.
you give?